Here to show you how to conduct powerful 10-minute training sessions is Jennifer Suzuki, President of eDealer Solutions, Inc. Please give her a warm welcome.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Suzuki, and today I'm presenting conducting powerful 10-minute training sessions in your dealership. And while I know that sounds super challenging, it can happen for you. And one of the most important things that's happening right now in the auto industry that we've got to pay attention to is customer retention. And not only that, but association with that is, of course, our employee retention. So a couple things that are happening right now in the industry is we're seeing a lot of turnover. We're seeing a lot of millennials coming into the organizations. With 67% of turnover, I kind of feel like this is a big deal, and it's something that we really have to hone in on. So today I'm excited to be here and share some insights with you. Not only insights that I see working in dealerships every week, but I also work at the NADA Academy as a guest instructor, where I'm seeing anywhere from 50 to 100 general managers each month. My finger's on the pulse for what is happening in the dealerships and different things that we can try to help improve our bottom line. And the cost of turnover is so significant. Today I'll be executing a class that I teach at the Academy for the last 2 years. I'll share some insights with you on that. I also have been executing this in dealerships with sales management and trainers. So I feel excited to share some of the outcomes in hopes that it will be a little bit easier for you. I've worked out the kinks for you. All right, well, let's get into this. Today we're going to talk about 8 steps to prepare for effective training sessions in your dealership. I'll show you 8 steps. I'm going to give you some examples along the way, but what you might want to do right now is pull up that handout associated with this presentation. You might want to even reference it throughout our discussions so that you can use it as you create your own 10-minute training sessions. Now, matching objective to goals is going to be important because we want to make sure that we are making the changes in our sales process that actually make an impact with today's situations. I like to look at statistics to make sure that we are constantly updating our processes to meet today's buyer's expectations. So we'll look at some of those as well and help you kind of think about your vision for your dealership. Not only does it help with hiring, but it's going to help us with this retention piece and the curriculum that we choose to create for ongoing career path growth. All right, so again, look at the handouts. Let's make sure that we actually execute this. So this picture is of a training room that I find very successful. When I'm conducting any training session, I'm thinking about how the audience is sitting down. So just a couple things to throw out there for you to consider is, what does your training room look like? Now, this is at the Academy. It looks super professional, right? You've got a mix of tables there with different groups. Now, we all know this. Millennials love to work in teams. So restructuring your training room might be conducive for even more improved learning. You can see in this particular picture that we're not using the traditional pull-down screen anymore, but we're making it a little bit more interactive by putting screens in the corners. Now, I know how this goes, so don't think that this has to be all you, but it's something to think about and work towards. And at the end of our presentation today, I'm going to show you a manager who is sitting in your chair right now, learning the exact same content, and then was tasked with getting up in front of his sales team immediately after this meeting and presenting a 10-minute training session. Now, real life, in that video, you're going to see him at the desk with his team at the desk holding a 10-minute training session. So whatever the environment is, you can make it work. But in any event, we have to be focusing on career growth for our employees. I love retention. I feel like it's this big thing that's kind of been a problematic area for a long time, and I know you're probably reconsidering your pay plans right now, how you're interviewing, and even the name of the salespeople you put out there. Sales consultant is kicking it old school. I've seen things like logistics coordinator, and these are just little tiny alterations, just like I'm going to share with you here today, that help us attract and then retain. So I like to look at these statistics, and every year NADA embarks on a workforce study. This is an excerpt from the workforce study that really just solidifies the fact that our turnover is so high. And what I'm asking myself as I look at this is, why did we have one of the best years ever last year retailing vehicles at 17,540,000 vehicles, yet our turnover continues to be so high? And it's super high, like 39% in the first 90 days. Now, why is this occurring? Probably because people don't know how to do their jobs or get really great at what they've been tasked to do. I believe that as you look at the declining tenure in the dealership since 2011, you're recognizing that we must have a career plan in place and intact for at least 3 years. At 2.4 years of turnover, I'm asking you to focus on a 3-year career growth plan for every sales consultant that enters your dealership. Now, we got to get them there and stay them for 3 years. That means you are going to have to work at creating an improved skill set for each of these individuals to keep them thriving in your organization. Lots of millennials out there, they love to learn. That's the good news. They love education. Who doesn't? So I'm thinking, if you're going to stand out above the competition, and you have a younger person who's college educated, you know, the one that you want writing your emails and totally representing your brand, because that's what we do in our sales processes now, I'm wondering how attractive you look when you're interviewing, because you're not just interviewing this person in front of you, they're interviewing you. And they've got other choices. And I'm wondering if your career path looks so strong that your competitors aren't even close to catch up, and now you come in swinging with a very serious training curriculum that shows somebody that we're going to be focused on education here. Oh, hell yeah. You definitely are going to stand above the competition. So when you're thinking about this next year and the importance of executing training and curriculum to help people thrive and be their very best, I'm hoping you'll think week by week, month by month, and eventually you'll have a year-long training curriculum in your dealership. Now, it's not going to be hard to do. There's a lot of topics that we'll talk about here today. So let's put some curriculum together for not only just daily occurrences, but let's go a little bit further along and get some weeks under our belt, months and years. I'm hoping that your 3-year career path will include training curriculum for literally 3 years. But hang on, let's just get to year 1 first. It's be a little bit easier to digest. All right, so let's make sure that we commit personnel to conduct these sessions. Now, if you're anything like me, I grew up selling cars and I wasn't a really great manager when I rose up because nobody taught me how to do that role. And I'm saying you might be the same situation. So today I'm going to help you with easy formats, but somebody in your store has got to be tasked with executing 10-minute training sessions, whether it's Schedule A that comes in the morning. If you have a Schedule B that comes in the afternoon and you have to do this thing 2 times, we might need to train 2 people. It's okay to execute the same training session twice in 1 day. But I'm hoping that you'll launch a training session, and whether it's a Friday or it's a Monday, it doesn't matter if everybody's there. Let's just pick a day and let's stay committed to it. And this is something that I've learned the hard way along the way, a little technique that I hope will save you some time, but pick a date and stand behind it no matter what. Now, you probably already have sales manager meetings already scheduled, so you could just piggyback something like this behind it. Now, let me just preface this by saying, I've sat in some of these sales manager meetings, and I'm just saying sometimes they go on for a really long time, and then a really long time, and then even longer than that. Oh my God, you're killing me. It's still going on. Yeah, that sales meeting. So apply some of the techniques today that you're hearing for creating your training curriculum, apply it to your sales meetings. And now you'll have something that's so organized and will make the best impact in your dealership without burning people out. 10 minutes, that's what we can handle. All right, so we've got our people in place and we've assigned a training day. We're like Mondays, 8 o'clock training session. And remember, we're trying to get this thing down to 10 minutes. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to plan accordingly. So we'll put that together here shortly. I like having guest speakers come in because if you're a dealership and you've got the same management singing the same song, sending the same message over and over and over, that's great. But how about when you bring in somebody else from the outside that is aligned with your company goals and objectives and has the same vision that can help reinforce the training curriculum that you're putting in place? Think about having guest speakers come into your dealership and actually train as well on the same goals and objectives that you're focusing on. And maybe it's something you look at your whole quarter and you're like, okay, this quarter we focused on phone skills. Let's have a guest speaker that focuses on phone skills come into our store. Attendee training materials is critical. Okay, so I love a handout. I think it's powerful. I've learned this again the hard way, but putting together a tool that I could read, I can go back and I can reread again. That's going to make your training curriculum far more impactful when somebody can look at a visual aid. So I like to having a handout. Personally, I like to just go a little bit overboard sometimes. I don't even know if it's overboard, but it's just knowing what people do now. I like to send emails, just like the sales process. I like to send an email recap of my conversation after every time I talk to a customer on the phone. I think it's professional, but it makes sure that we're on the same page, and then we're always aligned, right? So it's the same thing here. If I'm gonna train in the dealership on process, I wanna send an email to all my teammates to make sure they know what the goal is this week, along with a handout that helps with execution. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so now you gotta create some trainer activities. This is the fun part. I'll show you some activities that I found success with here today. But again, what I'm showing you right now is kind of all the things that took me a long time to figure out. In my experience in executing this over the last couple years, I finally got it down to just these things. People want to execute training on the fly. It goes on and on and on for too long. It triggers another thought and triggers another thought, and then nobody has a handout or even thinks about a trainer-led activity. This is the fun part. I love activities in the dealership when I put out a message, because the activities really help engage the audience. And really, this is what I want to say one more time: engage your audience. Get them actually executing the change. But you don't have to get super creative. Do what I do. What I did to get through all my schooling. Just Google that. Somebody else already came up with that, you know? So Google trainer-led activities and come up with some great ideas that you can use in your store. Everything is all about accountability. If you're going to be executing process, you got to go back and be like, is it working? Are they doing it, right? Something that I've been using and we use at the NADA Academy is an app called Kahoot, Kahoot. Right? It's so easy to download, but this actually is a quiz. Looks like a gaming application, and we know millennials love games, right? I do too. But it's a super engaging activity that you might want to use in your store. You will load up some pre-planned questions, and you'll select 4 answers, and everyone that comes into the room will be assigned a gaming pin. Right? They'll plug it into their app on their phone, they'll create a little name for themselves, and then they'll get all creative and they'll be like, right, like, I don't know, come up with some super creative names. I'm not gonna come up with those now. But you'll have fun with this, and that's the fun part, is that a lot of your audience will have fun playing this against each other, but it's really reinforcing the message that you've been training on. So try Kahoot. About 75% of schools are using this now. It's super successful. Again, it's Kahoot. Millennials love quizzes, they love training, they love anything that keeps them engaged in learning. So think about executing some online training into your dealership too. That way, people can train and learn on their own time, whenever that time might be. Doesn't always have to be in your dealership. They can have something that reinforces the curriculum you're executing face-to-face, online, and that's going to help make a bigger impact in your training execution. All right, so this is a picture of just, engaging your audience and having them actually follow along with your activities. It's important to get people to stand up and actually talk about what they're learning. So this is kind of what you're seeing here. I follow a super simple strategy that I learned at the NADA Academy. I now use it in everything that I do, and I want to teach you it today. It's very simple. It starts off with teach. And then we want to make sure that once we've taught that lesson, we demonstrate it. We might have to verbally put it out there and say it. And then we have them, the audience, actually apply what they just learned. Now remember, that's your activity. Okay, so that's my backbone here. And I follow these simple strategies. Refer to that worksheet right now that's in this handout. You'll see a worksheet, it's got a bunch of lines on it. The very top of it is going to be called title, because you are going to need to organize your training component. What's your title going to be? And I hope you'll put it in a sequential order too, because if you have a sequential order, then you know how we're going to stack a skill set, right? So it's not like we're just going to focus on one training component today and then next week is going to be completely off topic and into some other different focus and objective. But if we can just stack skill sets, we'll just stay in an order. Like for example, if I was to focus on the phones, right? I might focus on the incoming call greeting this week, and then I might talk about close-ended questions that'll keep leadership of the call next week, and then I might talk about how I'm going to sell myself and what I bring to the table and how I'll make this super time efficient for the customer. And then maybe the following week I'm talking about vehicle options, and we're going to talk about how to obtain hot buttons and deal breakers. You get the idea. It's in a sequential order. But the first thing that's really important right now is that we come up with a title. Now, this is the interesting part. Goals and objectives sounds really easy, but some people will say, yeah, our goals, Jen, is to sell more cars. And I'm like, yeah, that is totally what we want to do. But let's talk about our topic. So if I was to use a topic like incoming sales call, what would be my goal and objective? My goal might be to set appointments so I could sell more cars. First things first, right? So instead of just going right to the finish line, think about what it's going to take to get there. Goals and objectives are going to help us stay pointed and focused on what we're going to be training on. In a minute, I'll give you some more examples. Now, I like to execute 3 goals per week. I'm highly suggesting you do the same. Now, you might be thinking to yourself what I thought too. 3? Oh yeah, I could totally handle that. 3? That's not even enough. Can't we do more? And I'm going to just let you know right now, this is training, this is curriculum, and we should just focus on 3 things this week. Okay, because if it sounds so easy, then we can do this thing, right? See, the thing is you have a lot of goals and objectives, don't you, this week? You got to sell cars. You got to make money. We got a lot of moving parts in that dealership, so we have a lot of different goals, and every department has goals. So, and they influence one another. So when we're training, let's just nail 3 this week and get to the next 3 next week. So again, I learned that the hard way, but I'm glad to be here and share those hardships with you. Create examples for every single action, okay? What I mean by that is, if they don't understand what you're saying as far as what you expect on the action, then create some examples that help reinforce the action that you want them to take. Determine how you're going to demonstrate that. So be thinking about, okay, I've given them 3 goals. I've showed them examples for each of those 3 goals. Now I'm going to tie it all together. And it might be verbally. It might be a whiteboard that you put whatever it is that you're training on this week up for them to see. It might be on your handout. But most importantly, we know what we're going to do in advance. Now, when you try to do stuff on the fly, and the most professional, seasoned trainer will think that they can do this and knows you can't do this. It sounds like a great idea. Like, yeah, I'm going to train. I totally know what I'm talking about. I do this every day. But when you get up in front of your audience to be 10 minutes or less, we need to be strategic, well-planned, and thought through. All right, and that's what that worksheet's for right now. So let's make sure that we have an activity that we can create and conduct and execute here with our audience on this particular topic, right? So the activity is something that you should probably think about in advance. Now remember, we just Google that, right? Make sure that when you are creating a handout for your audience, that you also create a checklist, because you're going to want to ensure there's accountability for your 3 goals for this week. So a checklist is going to be super helpful for your audience, because you might not always want to be like, oh, let's go back to that greeting for a minute. Let's say we trained on that greeting, and now you're going to go back and listen to some recorded phone calls. If you have a checklist, you can have your audience not only holding themselves accountable, but also engaging them, maybe later in the week with an activity. Oh boy, 2 in 1. You might be able to have them review their call greeting and let you know, check, check, check if they've achieved it. So I like a handout, a checklist for every training activity. Provide feedback, and I'm going to show you what this means, because once you do your activity, you're going to have your audience executing what you've just trained on, and you want to provide them some feedback. But there's a very easy way to do it, and again, keeping this in a timely manner. So this is the worksheet I'm referring to. It's already in your handout. So let's have a look at this, and let's start putting this together. In the handout, I also put in there a completed meeting for your review as you're organizing yours. In that, I put an example of holding a meeting on effective voicemail, so you can increase your callbacks. Then you also will see a handout with activities included on that. So there's just something for you to refer to as you're conducting 10-minute training sessions and at least organizing them. So again, this should be completed well in advance of your meeting. You might even want to bring it with you to begin with. All right, now first of all, let's run through this. I'm going to give you some examples. The thing that we talked about is coming up with your training curriculum. Your component might be, in my case, I love phone sales. That's really like what my forte in dealerships is. I'm gonna just give you some examples on phone sales. All right, so let's say for this next quarter, or even just 30 days, I'm gonna focus all of my meetings every week on phone skills. And remember, I'm stacking skills. So remember, I gave you those examples of greeting, and then follow through questions, and then sell yourself, and then get vehicle options and hot buttons. Okay, so that's my component, phone skills. Now I'm starting to put them in order, so that way I know what my topics are going to be. I'm really just kind of mapping this thing out. I map it out with something like this. So right now, I've got 3 topics on here. I'm going to show you a couple more here in a moment. But what you're seeing is me just brainstorming ideas. Now again, this took me a long time to figure out. But think of things through and think forward, and that's going to help you execute more time-effective meetings. So I'm thinking, all right, this training session right now is going to be about incoming call greetings. My goals and objectives, and remember we talked about that a little bit, is to be pointed and specific. Guys, today we're going to talk about our incoming call greeting. The incoming call greeting is a big deal because we got to get leadership of the phone call so we can reduce obstacles and set more appointments so we can sell more cars. It sounds like this. And then I start working on my examples. Now, I'm just going to kind of go back to this, and I want to talk about more of that goal and objective. Remember, the shorter you can get this down to, the more effective your meeting's going to be. You might want to talk for days about, we got to sell more cars, we got to get more appointments. But remember, our topic is incoming call greeting. So we're not trying to sell more cars right now. Our goal and objective right now is strictly going to be attached to that topic we just came up with. So again, I might say, today guys, we're going to talk about our incoming phone call greeting. I want you to really think about this greeting because this is where it can go south. I want to make sure that we stay in a leadership position. We reduce the obstacles from coming up right out of the gate. And I want to make sure that we can lead this introduction into the next step, selling value of ourselves so we can get recognition for who we are. Now this is just where you might start headed. Put it all on paper and then let's bring it down to just a little bit, the good stuff. Guys, today we're going to talk about our incoming call greeting. We're going to talk about this greeting, and I'm going to show you exactly how you're going to gain leadership of this phone call so you can reduce obstacles, set more appointments, and get more people in the showroom so we can sell more cars. Do you see how I just condensed that? Because I'm mapping it out on that worksheet. And if you don't map it out, things go crazy when you try to do things on the fly. So again, back to the sequential order. Now I've added a couple more training topics, but what you're starting to see again is the goal and objective area is like one sentence because I've thought it through. I'm also coming up with more examples for each one of my actions that I want to take. So again, once I've mapped this thing out, I can copy and paste those 3 examples into a handout and create it for somebody to actually use as they're executing a training session. Step 3 is to make sure that we come up with those 3 goals. Now, in this incoming greeting, I'm going to select 3 things. I'm thinking name swap. All right, guys, today I want to make sure that on our incoming call greeting, we do a name swap. Now, they might not even know what that means, and that's why it's important to come up with examples to help reinforce that action. My second goal is going to be a pleasantry. Change up your game a little bit. For all those haters that called in and want to get all aggro on you, yeah, we're going to turn those people around right now. We're going to say something nice. Get them to slow their roll a little bit. So that's a pleasantry. And my third action that we're going to take this week on our greetings, on incoming calls, is we're going to ask a close-in question. Can we handle this? Yeah, you can totally do this, right? This is so manageable with only 3. But now we've got our 3 actions, and we're going to need to reinforce those actions. So remember, we had to come up with examples. I would suggest, based on my experience, don't sell yourself short and only come up with 1. Come up with 3. Try to come up with at least 3 for every single one of those actions. So it might sound something like this. All right, so our first action was a name swap. It might sound something like this, guys. First example. Thank you for holding. This is Jennifer, and you are? Or, second example, it might be, thank you for calling ABC Motors. My name is Jennifer, and who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today? That is a name swap. My third one, thanks for holding, and thanks for calling ABC Motors. My name is Jennifer. Who am I speaking with? Sounds all the same, but it's a little bit different, and what that's going to do is help people understand the point that you're making and find their own custom and personalized way so they can be you. Phone scripts tend to be just a little bit outdated. The important thing to think about is teaching your team the formula so they can apply it and find their own way so it sounds natural and a little more current. All right. So getting back to our processes here, we want to make sure that we demonstrate. Now remember, I'm going to just finish this out. So I gave you 3 examples for 1 action. Remember, the second goal was to create a pleasantry. So now I've finished my greet, my name swap, and I'm all right. So thank you so much for the call today. First example. Hey, nice to meet you. Second example. Third example. I appreciate you calling in today. It's a pleasure to meet you. Third example. My closed-ended question was my third action. I might say it sounds something like this. Were you looking at both new and pre-owned options? Were you looking at a new or pre-owned vehicle? Or maybe I might say, are you online right now looking at vehicles? Something that's modern, to date, right? Okay, so you get the idea. Now, I've given you all these examples, and I'm like, all right, we got to bring this thing together. So I might say something like, all right, guys, it sounds like this. Thank you for holding. This is Jennifer, and who do I have the pleasure of speaking with? Give them their name, and I say, well, it's a pleasure to meet you today. Thanks for calling in so that I can best direct your call. Were you looking for service parts or sales? I've got my close-ended question, and we're done. So you can see I've just now demonstrated it. Teach, demonstrate, apply. Now, I do want to make sure that we execute some type of an activity. I've already Googled my activity, and I'm thinking there's a lot of different things we can do. And in the activity, we want to engage the audience. We make sure they got it. You know, we want to apply. I'm thinking right now, my activity is going to be, wait for it. Got my bottle. You ready to play spin the bottle? All right, now that I got your attention. All right, let's play this game. So I'm thinking I'm still on the same track. I'm going to bring somebody up here that can help me. Come on, you. Come on up here. Let's play spin the bottle. All right, so I'm out there with my sales teams, right? I'm thinking I'm not going to do a traditional role play and just call it out. I'm going to play a game that gets their attention and gets the audience engaged. What's your name?
Danielle.
Okay. So Danielle, where I'm going to turn the bottle, and remember, it's landed on us. And I just easily say, let's do this thing. I am going to play the salesperson, and you're going to play the customer.
Okay.
Boom, it's on us. So now let's try this thing out. Ring, ring, ring. And I say, thank you so much for calling. My name is Jennifer, and you are?
Danielle.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Hope you're doing great today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank
so
you.
So that I can best direct your call. Were you looking at both new and pre-owned options?
Pre-owned.
Okay, perfect. Boom, we're done. Thanks for coming up. Most
you.
importantly, I've got my audience to actually execute. Now, we can keep on going, and so everybody in the room gets an opportunity to play. Now, you're going to come up with a lot of different ways to engage your audience, but the most important thing is that you do it. Don't just leave that meeting hanging, all right? Based on experience, you want to get people involved in saying what you need them to say so you know they got it. Then you're going to send them that email, right? Send a little recap. That's what we're doing this week. That's what we're focusing on. All right. Next, I want to make sure that everyone has a handout. Now, I've given you some examples of my handouts, but remember, even when I had on the screen here, when I mapped out 5 different training sessions in a sequential order, you saw all my examples. That's what I'm going to put on my handout. And I'm actually going to distribute that before the meeting even gets started. Now, when I do that role play, now, if I was going to assess myself, now remember, you're the manager now, and you just saw your teammates execute what you just trained on. Now, I'm going to have to play 2 different roles right now. Okay. All right. I'm just going to give myself some feedback on that. All right. Okay. Great job, Jennifer, is what you might say. But I'm saying, all right, how are we going to make this more impactful? Because our younger generations don't want to hear, great job, buddy. Yeah, that was rocking. Because that is nice positive reinforcement. But the reality is that you're not telling them why. That's the missing piece. And you can keep this in a time-efficient manner. If you think about what it is that you liked or what it is you didn't like, and tell me why. I like to start off with the love first, okay? Well, you might be like, oh my God, that was a total fail. Wow, that was dismal. That was not what we just talked about. And you might want to go there first because you're like, what just happened? We just spoke for 15 minutes on this and you couldn't even execute it. But that's not how we can train in a positive manner. So I like to follow the love strategy first. Give them a little love. What'd you like? You say, hey, that was pretty good. You know what? You sounded natural. That sounded like yourself. That was your personality shining through. What would strengthen that is if you'd actually followed all 3 steps in the sequential order. You did the name swap. All right. That's good. That's good. But we didn't say thank you, a pleasantry, and we asked an open-ended question, which we're trying to refocus on close so you can maintain leadership of the call. Again, what it is you liked, or what you didn't like, and why. Simple strategies, right? You can totally do this. But make sure that you provide some level of feedback after every single engaging activity that you conduct. People want to know how they did. So, again, I'm bringing it back together, and I've executed my training session. I've used my worksheet. Make sure that you have that completed before you run into the meeting. So at the Academy, I execute this with a lot of general managers every single month, up to 100. And then I have them get together with their groups, and they talk about and they write their training element. They fill out that worksheet. And then one person is elected to be the spokesperson to get up in front of the class and train, as I am here today, in front of all of their teammates. Now, super stressful, but you're dealing with people that are pretty experienced at talking to people, so it's not as stressful. Now, when I work in the dealership and I'm working with sales managers, this is kind of exciting for me because I know that they're improving their own skill sets, and oftentimes I've had people come up to me and they're like, wow, this really changed my life. I really learned a lot here today, and you've really pushed me and challenged me to learn something new. This is the skill set to start focusing in on, honing in on yourself. You got to do this thing. I don't know who's viewing this right now, whether you're an owner or you're a general manager or you're a trainer, but you've got to learn this and you've got to do this yourself if you expect other people in your organization to do it. You get up there and see what it feels like. And I'll tell you, you might just impress yourself. Feel really good about it. Now, the people in the dealership, sales managers that haven't really done something like this before, it's going to be nerve-wracking, and that's what I experience. But we got to build people up. And what I'm about to show you is a video of a manager that I literally just trained on exactly the way that I just trained you. And I asked him to go back to the desk and conduct a meeting with his team. And I'd like to share that with you just for your consideration. Let's have a look at this now.
Get these out to you guys. There's no checking off. We're gonna have some activities later. What we're gonna go over today is selling the value, selling the hustle, is what I call it. We're gonna let the customer know what goes into having an appointment with us. What's the legwork that we do before the customer shows up? Everything that we have to do to prepare for their arrival and sell them a car. What this is going to do is going to help raise your appointment rate. Customers are going to respect your time. They're going to show up on time. And it's going to help you set more appointments, where in turn we sell more cars. And that's what we're here to do, right, fellas? We can't do that until we set the appointments and get the people in.
Right.
Right? I have 3 key points that I want you guys to make sure every call we go through the customer with these questions. 3. All right? Those 3 are going to be we're going to pull the vehicle out before they get here and have it ready for them. Every customer needs to know that. We're going to save them we're going to save the customer a parking space. We're going to make sure when they get here they don't have to search for parking. This is San Francisco. That's going to stand out to them. No one else is going to tell them that. When they hear that, they're going to perk up. They don't have to look for parking. Number 3, my favorite. We're going to have the appraiser ready for you, and we're going to schedule an appointment with him. So that way, I brought somebody else in the appointment. They're not only flaking on me, they're flaking on the other guy too. Most people, they're going to take that pretty serious. All right. Now, if you look there, I have some examples for you, for each one of my key points. I want you to look at those examples, but I also want you. I want these key points hit every time, but I want you to put your own personality on it. I want you to put your own twist on it. But those key points will be hit every single customer, every single time. All right? What we're going to do, I'm going to do a quick activity with you. It's going to be maybe 3 minutes. The reason I want to do this is I want you guys to break off in teams, and I want you to work together on this, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with these key points and the different examples and how you guys are going to bring these examples up to the customers yourself. Because, yeah, I have mine and I know how I'm going to do it, but I also want to know how you guys are going to do it and what you guys feel comfortable doing and how you feel like also sending stuff to the customers, all right? So I'm going to split these guys here, you guys there. It's going to be 3 to 4 minutes. What I want you guys to do is I want you to come up amongst your group with your own examples for each one of these key points. You can reference my examples, but I want you guys to come up with your own. I'm gonna give you some paper. You guys are gonna write them down. And then after that, I'm talking 3 minutes. It's not gonna be long. You wanna get in and out.
So you can see, you can do these things on the fly, at the desk. As long as you have a plan, we can do this. And it's important that we think about what's happening in the industry right now. We have a problem retaining people. We have a problem with providing people opportunity to grow a skill set and to know exactly how to do their job and do it great and get better at it year after year. And that's where this comes in. Executing a 10-minute training session will happen for you. It might take you a little bit longer the first time, the second time, the third time, maybe even the 11th time, but stay strong. You can do this. Once you get the hang of it, it's just like learning new songs. You can do this. You don't know the whole song as soon as you just heard it on the radio, but the more you hear it, the more you get familiar with it. The next thing you know, you know the whole song. And that's really where we're at right now. Stay committed. There's going to be some growing pains. Stick with it. Stay committed, and so will your team. And they will actually do this, and they will grow, and you will keep people longer. I've been asked oftentimes, what do we hear? Or what do we see? Jen, what do you see as results when you actually stay focused on this? And the first thing that I say is I see a reduction in turnover. In 2 years of doing this now, case study-wise, I feel like that's the biggest thing that I see in the dealership. And think about all the money you're saving in eliminating the turnover cost. So this is super important stuff. Plan those weekly training sessions. Make sure that we time them. What I do is right now I would have had my phone out, I had my stopwatch on, I had to hit go when he started his meeting, and I hit end when he finished it, and I would screenshot it and text it to that manager so he always knows where he's timing out, right? And that will help us stay more focused on delivering time-efficient meetings. Remember the 3 strategies: teach, demonstrate, apply. You can totally do this. It's simple, right? Always offer a handout. That's going to make your meetings more impactful. And always include an activity so your team is executing the change that you anticipate. Well, thanks for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in person.